So, welcome, Adriana and Cecilia. So, Adriana, I can't even pronounce your last name, so I'm not going to, is the founder and CEO of Cafe Kind, a nonprofit organization that promotes kindness, compassion, and leadership in companies and institutions. She's an educator and entrepreneur who trained at Stanford University to become an ambassador of compassion. She also serves as a domestic violence counselor at another nonprofit in Silicon Valley. And so that's Adriana. And then Cecilla Kremer is an executive coach who helps leaders and teams to tap into the power of empathy. So needed. Her process enables individuals to develop self-connection and excellence for teams to build trust, synergy, and resilience. Cecilia is also a certified integral coach with a PhD, a teacher who has brought her work to Stanford Continuing Studies and corporations. Today, she joins us as a Chief Kindness for nonprofit Cafe Kind. So welcome, girls. Thank you. So The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mari-Lyn. Adriana and I are here through Cafe Kind. So Cafe Kind is a nonprofit that Adriana founded, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Nearly 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Its mission is to cultivate kindness and compassion in the world. But since this is about the work, we're going to focus on the workplace right now. We have had connections with companies, and we go and help companies to make space for empathy and for kindness. What we see in the corporate world right now is such a pressure for results and time and productivity that connection gets really crushed. And what we are is a force for these organizations to create space and help their teams connect. Because what people tend to forget in the daily grind is that the trust and the productivity and the resilience of team is built on this deeper connection. And if there's no time for deeper connection, then this doesn't happen. And at the end of the day, it also has a negative impact on productivity, on engagement, on retention. So we help organizations make space for that. We're the excuse for them to stop everything and just connect. And we have done that with Amazon and with Equinix here in the Silicon Valley and also in Brazil. And we're always looking for companies who want us to help them out. So today we're definitely going to want to talk about kindness. And I am going to show a few screens, but then the way we go about the work that we do is not so much about telling people, but actually help them engage with kindness so they can have the experience of that and come out of our experiences with sort of a boost of energy to go in the world and do that and practice that as they go along. So let me share my screen. And can you see that? And I may be looking sideways because my screen is on my other monitor. So kindness is something very simple, and it's basically our natural tendency to help each other. And there's a lot of literature that you can read about that. A book that I really like that goes really deep on kindness and empathy is the book called The War for Kindness by Professor Jamil Zaki. He is a professor at Stanford, and he has a lab there in which he does a lot of research on empathy and kindness. So if you look him up, you're going to find a lot of information about kindness everywhere in many organizations and one of the things that we wanted to share today is what is it that enables kindness? So what is it that brings to life in us that tendency or that willingness to help? So it's a basic, let's say, feature of the way that we connect with each other. So when we are in front of people, when we're talking, a lot of things are happening all at once. We don't see these things in part, but they're all happening at the same time. So we are actually perceiving the other person. So we're sensing. And like if I'm moving my hands, you may be feeling your hands wanting to move, or if I'm smiling, then you may find yourself wanting to smile. That's our mirror neurons, because when we mirror back what the other person is doing, it helps with connection. So that's one way of establishing connection. And then if you're in pain, I actually feel your pain, and that's what brings up in me my willingness to help you, to be kind to you, because I can feel your pain. And I want to relieve my pain, and the way of relieving my pain is to relieve your pain. So you see how there's that sort of exchange between two people that is very alive, and that's when kindness happens. I'm feeling your feeling. I am trying to imagine what is it that is happening to you? How is it that you think? You know, how come you made sense of all of this in this way, and now you're suffering, and now I want to help you? Or how is it that you made sense of all this and you're happy and celebrating, and now I want to celebrate with you? Because, you know, if someone is joyful and happy about something great that happened, and then you show up sad and you rain on their parade, that's kind of not kind also. But there is that balance of being kind to you and understanding where you are and understanding where others are, and then doing that dance of what is it that is best, what is it that is kinder at this moment. So that has to do with the taking action part. Now that I know what you think, or I think I know what you think, I have any hypothesis of that, I'm sensing you, I understand what you're feeling, what am I going to do with that? And that's our space of choice. That's when we can pause and choose to be kind. And that's what we want to invite people to work on, is to find that pause so they don't instantly react. For instance, if someone yells at you, it's very easy for you to get angry and yell back. That's your reactive mode. It's you're protecting yourself, you're defending yourself. But how is it that you can find a space to say, oh my God, this person is really angry. What must be going on for them? Look at how much pain they're in. What can I do to help them, to get them out of that pain? And then you have to be willing to be with them in that pain. And sometimes we're not. Sometimes we just want to defend ourselves. So it's really about being wise in these sort of very fast dynamics that happen in relationships, so that we can be kind. So thinking about the workplace, and this is where I'm going to invite you to also think on your life. There are things that get in the way of kindness, right? There are the barriers or deterrents if you're an intellectual like me. So they're the barriers of kindness. What is it that gets in the way of kindness? So stress and perfectionism, right? If I want everything to be perfect and you're not doing exactly the way that we had planned, you're doing something else, or, like I'm a mom and sometimes I want my kids to clean up after themselves and I keep nagging them for not cleaning up after themselves. And that gets in the way of a kinder way of me teaching them why they should clean up after themselves, and why is it that is good for them, and why is it that is good for me as a mom to teach them that so they can go out in the world and be successful. But I don't show up like that sometimes. I just show up as the nagger perfectionist that wants everything, the neat freak that wants everything to be clean and in place. So othering in the workplace, it happens, and I used to be a corporate worker. So in my place of work, I was the sort of domain expert. So I was in high tech, and I was the person who knew what needed to be done in user experience design, which was my area. And then we had to pitch a client. And then there were the salespeople, and the salespeople wanted to sell more, and the domain people to work as minimal as possible. So there was that tension of, I was trying to get more hours to get more work done and to be perfect for things to be really great. And then sales was saying, no, you can't sell all these hours. You have to shrink your hours, and then I'm going to charge the same for the client. And then the company is going to make more money, and our results are going to be awesome. And there was that othering. It was like, okay, so then it's sales versus the domain experts, right? How can we be kind in this situation, right? And that's our calling. That's our, if you want, what do you want as a value for your company? Do you want kindness or results? I mean, I'm not saying that these things are against each other, but sometimes you have to be really creative about how you're going to achieve both. How can you do both things? If kindness is about helping each other, so how is it that we can be creative and help sales and help the domain people, the people that want to get the work done, and help the client? And there are organizations doing this out there. If you, like, one example is LinkedIn, their chief of compassion, Scott Shute, talks about that sometimes. How is it that sales, they're working with sales, so sales can let some of that result orientation go so they can be kinder to their clients. They can be of better service to their clients. And it also has to do with sometimes understanding that maybe not having as big results right here, right now, is going to build the trust so I can keep that client longer and kind of be the companion, the partner of that client. So it's a different mindset. And the invitation is to question yourself, what are the values that are at stake here? And how is it that we incorporate and make them happen in life? And they're not just good ideas, and there's work involved there. So as I said, overvaluing doing and undervaluing connection. So sometimes people go into meetings and say, okay, we did the plan, we did this, we did that. That was a great meeting. And sometimes you go into meetings and you don't get a lot done, but you don't value that maybe that time that you spent not doing things and like talking and explaining, and expressing your point of view and listening to others. There's a lot of connection that is built there that is going to drive a lot of results in the long term, that is going to make that team thrive and be resilient and be kind to each other so they can stay on the path together. And that's usually not valued. So people leave out of meetings saying, oh, no, we didn't get a lot done. Hey, wait a minute. Can you take a look at how much connection was built? So that's the question that sometimes we have, that you also put that in your balance, and you also value that's time well spent, that one-on-ones are great things, that lunch with your colleague, that Zoom tea, the virtual tea you had with your teammate because you didn't get well evaluated in that performance review and you need someone to talk to. I mean, there's so much kindness going on there. And if you think about it, like at work, isn't it much better when you get a team that you feel like you work with your friends, that you can have fun together and you can suffer together and you can go through the struggles, but that you're going to hang on to each other? How much value is that? And that is built on empathy and kindness and compassion. So why is it we're not giving these things the time it deserves? Why is it that we're not valuing the results that these things bring? And yes, part of it is on us because we don't have enough research to show that in numbers. So maybe Brian Byro, I'm looking forward to his talk to see what he's going to tell us about that. So really appreciate the people who are doing this work. And there's still more to be done. So it's about what to do versus how we relate to each other as we do. And this is what kindness is all about. So I think a question, I'm going to stop for a moment and ask everyone, like, what are the barriers do you see in your work for kindness? And if you have a way to work with it, I'm thinking about us all like sharing wisdom and sharing our experiences, because I know we learn so much from our stories. So I was wondering if we have someone who is willing to break the silence and tell the story. Yes, Matt.
Well, I'll just share from my very small beginnings is that the barriers for kindness for me from the people that I spoke to were this basically, it can't work because it's too simple. So I think that's, but if it's simple, then it should be easy to do, right? So.
I love that, Mari-Lyn. I love that because our culture values hard work so much that if it's not hard work, then there's no value in it. And it's just so sad that we don't see value in the small things, and we have to do what we're doing now, right? Which is remembering everyone that leaving a post-it note or a one text message on, through their phone or email saying, I really appreciate what you said in this meeting. How much energy you're giving that person to continue on their path through this little act of kindness. And kindness really is huge. I mean, you can go from that one simple thing, and sometimes it gets hard. It gets hard, as I said, when there's a struggle between sales and the experts and the client. Then that's when it's like building this muscle, right? That's when your kindness muscle needs to be really strong. And what I like to say to people is, if you haven't found a way out that everyone is happy, that everyone has their needs met, is because you haven't given it enough time and you haven't been creative enough.
Right.
So if it feels like one is winning, the other is losing, and sometimes it is true. Sometimes we are not given the time. If a client gives us a deadline, that's going to be it. But I think at the end of the day is looking back and say, okay, this time we didn't give or we didn't have enough time and we were not creative. What can we do differently next time so we can do this and be kind with everyone around us? So then you carry on with that learned lesson and you don't give up on kindness.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, my issues, Ivan, wasn't kindness with my groups because I'll have those stories Thursday, but it was other parts of the organization thinking we were being a little too soft. When in fact we were building, and it was building the foundation for people appreciating and working together and being dedicated, not working 12-hour days and getting the job done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, what you're saying really resonates, with me, and a lot of the issues that you brought up about, getting people to just work together and the importance of the connections, the interpersonal connections. It's not just about the goal and getting the job done and going to the next task. The best teams are going to take the time to build those interpersonal connections so that they'll know, better how to work with each other. And just be that much more effective. So, I really love what you're saying.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One of the stories I'll use is in a very tumultuous situation in a laptop company. The long story is, I'm not going to tell, but the short one is the vice president of sales in Chicago sent an email saying, God bless those who care for what got done because of that environment. And VPs of sales don't usually say, God bless those who care.
There you go.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you all so much for sharing and Yeah, it was great to hear that and to have this awareness. I think that's what we're trying to develop here, because sometimes these barriers, they get sort of hidden or even reinforced by the value system in place in our society. And the more we see them and the more we can see the harm that it's doing to us, the more we can work with them to change things. That's really what we want to do in Cafe Kind. It's really about being the change makers, of stepping in and inviting people into a new reality. And seeing these barriers is, I think, one important step for that. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again for us to look at some enablers. Oops. Where did that go? Okay, yes, we just did that. Okay, so enablers. So what are things that support kindness in the workplace? And I think that has to do with what Ivan mentioned, or Ivan, I don't know how to pronounce that, but he mentioned right now, which is well-being and self-compassion. So it's understanding that there's pressure to get things done, but that if I can't do all these things and be well, there's very little room for me to be kind. When I am stressed, I don't have a lot to give. So for companies is having, being conscious about how much pressure is being put on everyone to deliver, and how is that affecting teams and their ability, people's ability to relate to each other in a healthy way and be kind. So how is it that you can support both, and what needs to be done to support people to be well and also deliver in a way that is healthy for them and healthy for the company? Of course, companies need to be sustainable. But also companies want to retain and engage the people that work for them. And if you stress people too much, then that end of your need, or the company's need, gets harmed. Another enabler, which is interesting, is sometimes time of crisis are the times in which people actually become kindest to each other, because they all feel vulnerable together. And like with COVID right now, right? I mean, Cafe Kind, our events were only like in presence. And then with COVID, that was not the reality anymore. I bet, probably maybe the same for this conference. And we're just thinking, wow, that we cannot do that anymore. And how is it that we're going to continue to serve our community? And we had to be vulnerable, in the sense that in the beginning, a lot of us didn't know how to do Zoom, and we had to show up, and things would get messy in the beginning, but there was that sense of we're all in this together. And this is in the middle of all the suffering that COVID is imposing on us. There is that vulnerability that now at work, when I am in a meeting, I see your home. I see your kids. I see your pets. I see if your room is messy, if your bed is made, and I can connect with you in a whole different way. The other day, I went to my doctor's appointment in my robe, and I just realized once I was there, I was like, oh my God, I'm in my pajamas in a doctor's appointment. And he could see me in a whole different way, and I could see him in a whole different way. I was in his home. So there's that brings us together and in touch with our common humanity, which are similarities. We're all human. We all have these emotions, positive emotions, the negative emotions. And it's just so beautiful when we can connect from that place, when we can step out of the doing and understand that as we try to do things, as we try to create waves of change and profits and whatever it is, that we are all feeling a lot, that we all have a lot of emotions that come with work. And it's just so sad that in our culture, many times people actually take pride of not bringing emotions to work. People say, oh, you're getting emotional, like if you're sad and if you cry when your performance review is not good, then you're getting emotional. Well, not being able to cope with your emotions or being overwhelmed by your emotions is different than not having emotions. So yes, you can have emotions, and we all have, and if we identify them, and if we identify the needs that come with the emotions, because the emotions are telling us things that we need that are not being met. So if we can be with each other in that way, we can be so much kinder with each other. So if you're angry because you're frustrated because a deadline was not met, you have the right to be so. But then how is it that you can talk to the person who didn't meet the deadline to understand what was happening for them? What pain were they going through not to meet that deadline? I bet most people are not proud of not meeting deadlines. And most people don't do that on purpose. So how is it that we take the time to say, hey, let's have a virtual Zoom tea to understand what is going on here? Maybe that person needs help but doesn't want to ask for help. Maybe they don't have the capacity. Maybe they don't have the skills. And we usually don't take time for that. So it's really about validating. Being kind is really about validating the point of view of others. And one thing that people also, I think, sometimes misunderstand about validating or, listening deeply and empathizing, it has nothing to do with agreeing. People think that being nice is being the people pleaser, is saying yes to everything. Well, that feels nice to the person who is receiving it. I'm not going to deny that. But it doesn't necessarily always feel good for the person giving it. If I am saying yes to something that really is going to make me tired at the end of the day, not available for my kids when I come back home after work. So how is it that saying yes to my boss is kind to him at the expense of kindness to myself? So if I want to be kind to myself, I have to say, look, I'm so sorry. I really wanted us to make this deadline, but it's just too much for me. We need to be creative. We need to find another way out here so I can be well, and that deadline needs to be met, can be met. Or maybe we need to work with the deadline. So there is a kind way of managing these struggles, right? In which sometimes interests are not in alignment. So knowing yourself and being willing to know the other, and kind of you two being willing to step into each other's world and making the time to come up with a creative solution. That's the work of kindness. That's the work that we need to do. So now, instead of doing breakouts, I'm going to stop sharing. And I thought we would talk about, what are the enablers of kindness? What are the things in your life that you see, maybe a situation in which you see, wow, that was a really moment of kindness. Either you were giving kindness or receiving kindness. If you can remember, and what happened that made that possible?
Oops.
So I'm happy to chime in. I think one of the keys is, and you pointed this out, is just trying to meet people where they're at and try to understand where they're coming from, and start to build connection that way.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you mentioned that too. And I'm going to ask you all to remember a moment in which you felt heard and you felt understood, right? I mean, maybe there's something that is bothering you, and or sometimes we're anxious, right? For those of us who are kind, it sometimes can be hard to say no. We get anxious about the negative reaction that we may get because we know in some way we may be frustrating to the other person. And remember, like, there are these times in which we say no and the person says, oh, that's okay. I understand. So if you tell your boss, look, I'm so sorry, I cannot meet this deadline, or this is not work that I feel I'm able to do. So you're showing up in a vulnerable way because you're fearing that that's gonna affect your performance, that your boss is gonna see you as someone that is less than what you believe or your ego believes that you should be. And that person say, hey, that's okay. If you don't know how to do this, hey, there's this training. There's this person who knows a lot. I can pair you up. And if you bring this to your mind, at least what happens to me is like, out of a sudden, there's like this whole relaxation in my body, right? This feeling of receiving that kindness that I can be who I am. And that's okay.
I have something to say.
Yeah.
I'm being the ambassador of fun here again.
Yeah.
Fun with no worry or stress, and fun all the time. So I have fun, but I volunteer a lot in lots of organizations. And so like being at a meeting, any kind of meeting, a board meeting, a general meeting, and people are, you've been there like for 15 years or 14 years or even 1 week or one time, I don't care. But I think feeling that by being at the meeting, whoever's at the meeting, the presider should make everybody feel welcome. Okay, but not just welcome, because people say welcome to the Zoom, welcome to the Zoom. Mari-Lyn welcomed all of us, welcome. But if we're giving comments or suggestions at a meeting or even here, sometimes when you're making a suggestion, I feel that sometimes when I'm making a suggestion at some meetings, they're not heard. The provider could say, thank you, Mari-Lyn, not ambassador of fun, but thank you, Mari-Lyn, for your ideas. We appreciate them, even if they're not going to listen to them, even if they're like off the wall, and you've got your eights there, you've got your ones there, or whatever you have there. I think usually, I don't know, I don't consider myself a strong personality, but it's stronger than some. But I think a lot of good ideas, and I go to lots of events like this so I can share your ideas with other clubs. I'm doing this selfishly to gather your information to share with others. And when I bring it up, say we could do this, show a little bit more kindness to people that are in the meeting or this. Thank you, Mari-Lyn, for your suggestion. We'll take that into consideration. Just acknowledging the idea, even if it's a bad idea. Like, let's dive off a cliff. Thank you, Mari-Lyn, for suggesting that. We'll take it under consideration.
Yes, and it's interesting because that's there is sort of there is work. There is kindness is also a skill.
I think,
and listening to people and making them feel heard is a skill, right? Because when you say, "I hear you," and then you move on to the next thing, that's how you feel, how you make people feel heard, right? So there is a skill that comes to it as well. And I think, the work that is coming up for me right now is the work of nonviolent communication or compassionate communication, in which you really reflect back, this is what I'm hearing you say. And then you actually let the person really lay it out until the person thinks that is covered, that person really has been heard and has been considered.
But even if you're just a brand new person, that person has as much value in what that new person says at a meeting or at a workplace than somebody who's been there for 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that is a skill. That is a skill that
and it is a skill, and it comes with kindness, as we all humans do this, right? We do sort of a math in our brains in terms of, is it worth engaging with this or not? And the way that we're conditioned is time is of the essence, and therefore this is not part of the agenda, so I'm going to move on to the next thing. So what is the cost of having someone feeling not heard? That is not taken into account. And when you say, if someone new comes in and that person is heard, how much energy am I giving this person to be in that team, to be in that meeting, to be engaged and participating? So when you're not heard, you're like, okay, bang, I'm disconnecting. I'm going to check my cell phone. I have better things to do because I'm not being listened to, right? What is the cost of that? What is the cost of having someone disengaged because you didn't listen, because you were not kind? And the other, the opposite is true too. Maybe that person, maybe in your brain, you think okay, time is of the essence and we're running here. Then you can say, look, I hear you, and I wonder if we should make another meeting out of this because this is so important, or because this is such a great idea. Or so you're still listening and you're still considering and validating. You're still giving that space, but you're still keeping your agenda. So you see the different ways of saying no, maybe, or just giving the person the time, because when you give that person the time, the person doesn't feel like he or she was dismissed. Everyone has an important contribution to make, and that's being kind. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I want to loop back to another point you made earlier on, when your relationship with your direct supervisor or your boss. Most, 70% of job satisfaction comes down to your relationship with your direct boss.
Exactly.
And, so it's really an important relationship and an important role. And making sure that people who are supervising other people have these skills, these listening skills, and skills to make it safe for people to approach them and actually have an honest conversation and a trusting conversation. And that, to me, I think is one of the cores of kindness in the workplace, is just, all of these wonderful things that you're talking about, but really instill it in that relationship.
Yes. So let me, I'm going to make a comment and then have Ivan chime in. It is true. And still for a lot of companies, the career path is going from technical into management, and no capacitation of the person who is stepping up in the ladder and managing people. And I see a lot of people just getting lost because they go from doing the technical work to do the people work, and companies don't give them enough support. And then it is a struggle, and people suffer. And they suffer by achieving something that they wanted so badly. So it is a complex situation for sure. And what Cafe Kind does is we go into companies and offer these circles of connection, kindness, empathy, compassion, whatever ties in better with their culture. So they can come together in this safe space and create a different kind of conversation that can be a reference for how they want to talk to each other outside of that space. Because sometimes people don't even have that reference. They're just so drowned into the doing that they don't even know how to do this. And we need to give them space and show them how to show up for each other. We haven't been taught that. It's a flaw of the way that of our upbringing. And a flaw, I mean, I have empathy. You know, our parents didn't know that. Our educational system didn't know that. It's doing its work to make better. But what we have to do is act right now for the people who are in the workplace so they can have that. Ivan, is it Ivan?
It's Ivan, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, this quick. I see the comments in chat about active listening, which I appreciate. My son, he's now a fireman, works in the emergency room in Colorado, and long story, but when he was 11, I said something about listening, and he said, "Dad, I can't listen. I always want to say the next thing." I said, welcome to the world, Josh. So the little vignette I wanted to tell is when I was at Apple, I was a fairly new manager of a very demoralized department, which I like turning that around. And one of the ladies, I knew she had a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and she said her son was homesick, her 6-year-old. I said, "Well, who's with him?" And she said, "No, he'll be fine." So I knew she was scared, didn't want to lose her job. So intuitively, I said, "Look, Susie," I'll call her Susie, "the only way you'll get fired around me is if you don't go home and be with your son." Mm-hmm. So her loyalty increased even more, and her work increased even more just by feeling cared for, that moment of kindness. Mm-hmm. And it's not like I knew that was the right thing to do. It just felt right. And the heck with the company policy. Let me emphasize that. The heck with the company policy.
You know, I love that example. Isn't it that we need to be so brave to be kind? Yeah. Go, Adriana.
No, you can go ahead. I'll
I
wait.
thought you were reading. Well, I mean, it is your turn. So,
slide back there, and then okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to share the slide, and you let me know when to take that off.
All right. I really like what Ivan just shared. It was really precious, Ivan. Thank you.
Welcome.
Nice. So we have here being kind to yourself by respecting your humanity. Cecilia talked about common humanity. So kindness at work means being kind to yourself by respecting your humanity so that you can be kind to others and make room for well-being. Kindness is a two-way street. So, you know, it's okay, Cecilia, if you want to take it down. So, you know, when we prepared, Cecilia and I were preparing for this conference, there was so much going on in the background. And by the background, I mean our lives, not as volunteers of Cafe Kind, but as human beings, right? And when we say that kindness is a two-way street, it really we have to be kind to ourselves so that we can be kind to others, so that we can be, you know, vice versa, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing that is in my head, it is we prepared when Cecilia and I were trying to squeeze time to prepare a little bit for this conference. And we really want to put our heart in it because afterwards it's, you know, the subject that we work for, right? And we were both, that was in one of our, I think our first prep, we're both in a lot of pain. I'm not going to stress Cecilia's pain, but we are both in a lot of pain, a lot. And I remember we started the prep. And I was literally laying down in my bed and never do that, right? I was sitting, and I was like dead, half dead was the end of the day. And Cecilia asked, how are you? And I know when Cecilia asked me, how are you? I can really say how I am truly, right? But I couldn't because we knew we had 20 minutes, 25 minutes of our day to prep, you know? And then we go back to time, how time is precious, and then deadlines, and everything we've been talking about here. And we know, right? We are the kindness ambassadors. So we know all this. We know our homework. We know. We know what is important. But even though I'm an ambassador of compassion, at that moment of my life, I did the stiff upper lip thing, the British thing. And marched on and said, Cecilia, some heavy stuff just happened, but I don't want to lay that on you. And then Cecilia said, I understand. And we have so much, little time. Let's put some time aside just for us to talk about ourselves. So let's march on. And we did. But as we did, and we prepared for this, in my heart, I was like, pull back. Talk about yourselves. Make this time about the two of you. Forget about the prep. But I didn't. I carried on over my feelings and Cecilia's feelings, and we did it, and we are here, So in view to that, what I want to relate to all of you is that, yes, we are humans. Yes, we know how to do kindness. We know how to do compassion, but we still don't always succeed. It is not a soft skill. Kindness and compassion are not soft skills. It is really hard. It is really hard on your daily day and on these tough moments of your life to be kind to yourself, to be compassionate to yourself and then to others. It is really hard. So I think that we have really to pat our backs here and say that we are doing a tremendous job. And I bow down to Mari-Lyn to put together this conference. You are a true pioneer. I keep calling her a pioneer. For that, it's beautiful. And I'm so grateful. So what I would suggest really is that how about we take, we do a little exercise. I mean, we have many, we call experiential exercise at Cafe Kind that we do in companies. So I would really, it's a suggestion. You might say yes or no, but how about there are not many of us, but I don't know most of you. How about we go in breakout rooms for 1 minute? It's 1 minute exercise. And the instruction is try to establish a kind and high quality connection with whoever you are in the room. Even if you know that person, it's about this very moment. So it's like a gift we're going to give to ourselves during this kindness conference. Just the two of us, whoever falls into the room, I think there were three triad, and try to establish a kind and real high quality connection at this moment with whoever you're in the room. You accept it?
Sure.
Yep, accept it. Yeah.
Go for it then. Cecilia, can you do that for us? Can you?
When was the last time somebody told you no?
I have to say something, Ivan. I loved the Enneagram, workshop from Matt very much. And I am a number 2. So of course I'm connecting emotionally with everybody.
Right.
We have 3 2s.
I'm a 7 too, Mari-Lyn.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all 2s. That's what I said. We have 3 2s here. I don't know who else is a 2, but yeah.
So, am I to create the breakout room, or I'm just?
Well, I think you're co-host. You should be able to.
Okay.
Do you want me to do it, or you want to do it?
I can do that.
It's under 4.
Is it 2? How many people you want each room? 2?
We'll have 2s, and one room will have 3, I think.
Okay. I'm gonna let it do its magic automatically. So let's all hope that this is gonna work.
Time 1 minute.
1 minute.
Remember, it's a high quality. Let's do 2 minutes. Okay, I'm feeling good today. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay, so let me.
2 minute kind, high quality connection.
So 2 minutes into the entire breakout. Okay, off we go.
There we are. We've got
so
2 people.
The 2 of us here, and everyone else is good.
Oh, good. We'll let everybody else be on their own. They'll come back when they're ready.
Okay, do you want to share something with me?
Sure. Well, I'm just going to ask you how you're doing with your mom. I know your mom passed away.
Oh,
So.
thank you so much. It comes in waves. So, and when it's recent, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
But it still comes and go. And, definitely a lot of grief and knowing that there's nothing new that we can create together.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, I mean, I still feel very connected, and there's this sort of pure love
Mm-hmm.
comes with that, with the memory and all the things, and the appreciation of all the things that she did for me.
Mm-hmm.
That in a certain way, it's interesting because it doesn't get tangled up with the daily stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of purity that is beautiful to see.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure she comes and visits you, and
Yeah.
you guys have great conversations still. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely, I mean, I have my picture of her, and
Mhm.
that's how we're doing it. How
Yeah.
about you? How are you, Mari-Lyn?
Well, I think after this conference dies off after the end of the week, I'll just start to feel like, okay, now I really got to focus on me. Because this is so much other focus, right? It's not to say that I haven't enjoyed it. I do enjoy doing it. And that I was just trying to figure it out. How do I line everything up so that it flows, right? Not just in the conference, but what I want to do, because I've had to pivot from what I was doing before until now. Yeah.
Well, I want to appreciate all that you did, and I hope that you come out of this with a lot of good energy, knowing that you have your mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
I feel honored that I could support you in a not so great way this year. That's not usually how I am. I'm doing my best, and it was not a good time, but I'm still appreciative and hope you go back to your thing with that good energy,
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, everybody's back.
So Adri, I wanted Adriana's contact. Did you put it in there? And maybe everybody puts their contact in the chat room, and then we'll have everybody's contact. Even if you don't want it, we'll have it.
Good idea.
Yeah, just everybody put their email and their phone number, whatever, because she's a 7 and I want to connect with another 7. I want a friend.
Yeah.
So, to everybody, yeah. Give us a minute to do that. Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
No,
You don't have to. If you're a private person, you don't have to do that.